All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Yamhill County Board of Commissioners formal session on August 20th at 10 a.m. And I'd ask Ken to lead us in the flag salute, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for that. In here. Is there any changes to our calendar that the commissioners need to make?
None.
D is public comment. If you're here to give public comment, raise your hand. If you're online, raise your virtual hand. Seeing none, we're going to move on. One online, okay. We're going to promote you, Mark.
Yeah, thanks. I may have raised my hand a little too soon. I believe I'm on your agenda for the attendance ordinance in Malheur County, so I apologize for that.
Item Mark.
Yes.
Okay. We'll come back to you when we get to that, Mark. Sorry about that. Seeing no general public comment, move on to E, which is our presentation about a truancy task force. And we have Jeff and Courtney here. Come on down and we'll get you set up with your slideshow. Yep, right to the middle tables there. Good morning. How are you guys doing?
You need us to introduce ourselves?
What's that? Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Introduce yourselves and then let's get this slideshow up and running though, so we don't have any interruptions.
Great. Good morning. I'm Dr. Courtney Farua, and I serve as the superintendent in McMinnville School District.
And I'm Jeff Clark. I'm the superintendent at Amity School District.
Okay.
Good. We are here this morning as part of a process to hopefully get your approval of forming a task force to look at truancy and how we might deal with that more effectively within Yamhill County. Over the history of public education, we've had mandatory public attendance or attendance at school from the age of 7 until 18 or when they graduate. And there used to be quite a bit of teeth in that, consequences for parents who didn't, follow through on that. In 2021, the state kind of took away those teeth and has taken a very different approach and tried to just incentivize kids coming to school with positives, but without any real consequences tied to it any longer. And yet school districts are still not only have been held accountable for student attendance, but that's going to be increasingly a burden that rests on the school districts to try to find a way to get kids to come to school, but without any state endorsed consequences if they don't come to school. And so we have had Mark Redmond from Malheur ESD, who on the east side of the state, very instrumental in pulling together their county and all of their school districts and other agencies within the county to find ways to put some teeth back in at a local level and try to encourage parents to be engaged in this process and realize that it is important and that if they need help, there is assistance there for them. And so Malheur County has been very successful with this. They've seen their truancy rates drop tremendously. So at the state level, we have chronically absent, which is if you're not coming to school at least 90% of the time. And then there's the flip side of that is regular attenders, those who do. And so those terms kind of get used interchangeably a little bit, talking about the groups of kids we're dealing with. And so they've seen their regular attendance rates go up significantly and their truancy rates or their chronically absent rates drop significantly. And if you saw the Willamette Week, the Willamette Week article, is that June, July? Just recently really examined that in more detail. And Several other counties on the kind of northeast part of the state, Umatilla and Union counties, are also looking into starting that this year and looking for hopefully some similar results there. And so we're not necessarily trying to take what they're doing over there and just overlay it. We understand every county has its own situations, own dynamics and uniqueness to it. But what we would love to do is look at ways to bring the school districts, the county, and resources within the county together to try to find ways to solve some of this. I'm going to let Courtney talk a little bit, because this is one of her favorite things to talk about, is the kind of the consequences of not addressing this.
Yeah, and if you can advance the slides, I think 2 ahead. I want to really surface that the reason why we're here is because we care deeply about kids. And that when students are at school, there is a lot that we can do that helps them have the tools that they need to overcome all sorts of obstacles. What is hard for us is when they are not there. And our schools are doing incredible work in trying to do outreach. In McMinnville School District, we have attendance teams at every building. They are making phone calls every single day. They're making home visits. We've got a district team to look at those for whom the building aren't having success with. And if it was a matter of doing more at the school level, we wouldn't be here today. Our best moves are not working. We have approximately in Yamhill County 13,000 students that attend public education, and we are experiencing an over 30% chronic attendance rate. That means that over 4,000 children in Yamhill County are not regularly attending school. And for me, this feels like that canary in the coal mine of a concern that is going to be a problem for us long-term in our community. If we have students that are becoming adults that don't have a basic literacy or numeracy or the skills that they need in order to make a family living wage. So we are asking for our county to join us in partnering as a community approach so that schools aren't the only ones at the table talking about the importance of coming to school. If you advance to the next slide, there's some data that's pretty profound. I'm sorry, let me go back. This is the historical context. So as Jeff mentioned, prior to 2021, there were some consequences or some community partnerships that happened. Locally in Yamhill County, we had an attendance court. Judge Easterday was the sitting judge for that process. In my time as an administrator at Washer Elementary, I only used this about 3 times in my 6 years as a building administrator. Again, it's a last resort when all of our best moves have been exhausted. My experience of those interactions with Judge Easterday in court were 100% not about the fine or the punitive measures, but about creating the conditions that require families to engage in the supports that will help with those root causes that are preventing the school attendance and other just basic functions of the family.
And I think a lot of this is an effort to provide incentive to bring parents to the table. We do visits with parents, as Courtney told, as Courtney said, we do lots of things at the school level, but if there's nothing beyond that, oftentimes what we find is that the parents just stop engaging with us. And then we're kind of left without a resolution on how to get this child to school and ensure that they're getting those critical skills that they need. And so the idea here is that oftentimes taking this to the next level would provide an opportunity for those parents to maybe see that, yes, that this is important and there's more to this than just the school level. And we know that there's a variety of reasons why parents struggle with getting their kids to school sometimes. There are cultural issues. There are possibly psychological and medical issues that are getting in the way for the parents. We also know that oftentimes it is a bit of a hopelessness. Sometimes parents are just overwhelmed and need more support and don't know where to really get that. And so we see that, especially at the elementary schools with young parents, oftentimes that they're just ill-equipped to do parenting. And so they don't know where to go to. They don't even maybe know that they are ill-equipped. And so trying to assist them with that and getting other agencies involved, whether that's at the county level or that's other kind of para organizations that might come alongside that offer parenting assistance or other well-being assistance that they might be able to tap into that will help them create those structures and change the culture within their home to prioritize education for their children. And otherwise, we get into this cyclical nature. We see this especially with poverty in Amity School District. Our demographic that struggles the most with both attendance, graduation rates, which of course are closely tied together, are our white, poor families. Our Latino population does very well about coming to school. They prioritize education generally, actually at a higher level, regardless of their socioeconomic status. But our poor white families are really struggling. And we see this becoming a generational poverty issue. And we know that one of the ways to break that is for those kids to come to school and to be able to realize there's some other opportunities out there for them. But if left to itself, it just continues to spiral in a negative way.
If you go to the next slide, there's some data that's pretty profound. So this gives you the attendance rates prior to the pandemic is in the shaded column there. So you'll notice that in 2018-19, in our district, we had a attendance rate across the board that was above 80%. So the state average at that time was also 83%. Then you go into the post-pandemic and you see a drastic cliff. So instead of the numbers starting with an 8, you're seeing them start with a 5 and a 6 and a 7. And you'll notice that despite our best efforts in the years since that time, they are continuing to be at that lower level. And this is also the exact same time when the state took away the opportunity for us to work collaboratively as a community for holding them to coming to school. This data is all available on the Oregon Department of Education website. I would also be very interested in if we were to look at our juvenile justice, data and cross-reference that with attendance rates. My belief is that you will see an incredible amount of our students that are involved in juvenile justice as also being chronically absent and have been for a pattern of years.
I would like to just kind of add to this, and in just a moment, I'd like to invite Mark Redmond from Malheur County to kind of weigh in and offer his perspective. But I just want to say, and I hope this doesn't come across as condescending. I know you guys are not in education, and so sometimes when we talk to people who are outside of our realm, I hope I'm not stating something that's too obvious. But what we see within schools, and I don't think it matters what size of a school this is, whether it's McMinnville or Amity. When kids are at school, we have a chance to engage them beyond school as well, to get them involved in things beyond just the classroom. If they're not at school, obviously that doesn't happen. But at Amity School District, we offer lots of after-school clubs within the elementary school, the middle school, sports start in the middle school as well through the school district, and then continuing on through high school. We firmly believe that if we can get kids involved in something beyond the classroom, their success rate is tremendously higher. I mean, it's night and day. And not just academically and in terms of graduation rate, but also just in terms of their social behaviors and in terms of their mental health and their well-being. Because we know that when they're engaged beyond the classroom, they sense a connection with other people, with adults, with other kids. And they're not just a number, they're actually part of a group, an organization. And so we see this across the board. And that's why we have, I don't remember our last count. We have 12 or 14 different clubs at our elementary school for after school, no cost to parents. We've invested student investment account money into that because we think that's important to engage those kids beyond the classroom. But if they're not at school, we can't do that. And so it starts with getting them to school and then trying to engage them at a higher level and a deeper level and offer them something that offers some meaning beyond just academics to them. And so But again, it starts with attendance, and if we can't get them there regularly, we really are fighting a losing battle in terms of all those other issues that kids are going to deal with beyond just the literacy, which is critical, but it's not obviously the whole person. Mark, can you hear us? Is he still there?
All right, can you hear me now, Jeff?
Sure.
Okay, sorry, they were able to unmute me. Yeah, I don't want to take too much of your time, but just to reiterate what the superintendents there said, we started day one literally when we found out that the bill passed that took away the ability to do truancies, and I see that according to your data in your county, a lot of schools pre-pandemic and before they took away the ability to fine, you're in the mid 80s. And we were too. We were in that 85, 86 across the board. We are back to that now. And I think that's one of the questions out there. A lot of people are saying, the pandemic is what caused this. And it definitely, had an impact. But, I think the counties that have applied the ordinance back, the rate of recovery, like in 4 years, we're back to where we're at. And I think the ones that have not been able to reapply an ordinance and have some teeth in the background on this attendance issue, they're coming up, but you're at high 60s, low 70s type stuff. The other question that comes up is just scalability. I saw somewhere, I think you have about 12,000 kids in Yamhill County. Over here in Malheur County, we're about 6,000, so about half. To give you an idea of the scope of this, we had 35 hearings total last year across the entire county, and there was one fine issued. Over the last 4 years that we've applied this, there's been a total of 5 fines issued total. So we went into this, that the fine is the absolute last resort. What the school districts needed was the leverage to have the parents converse with them and to solve problems. And I think what you'll find is when it gets to the point of having to have a hearing, it's gonna be the parents that are refusing to communicate and work with the school districts. And so in those hearings with our justice court, it enables that conversation to happen. We have all of our wraparound services in that room at that time. They listen to the school district, they listen to the parents and the students. They listen to the issues of why the student can't be there on time. And without question, there's somebody in the room that has an answer or a service that they can provide to help that parent. DHS is in there, juveniles in there, ESD and the early learning hub is in there. Like parent, for example, if a parent says, my older kid cannot get to school on time because they're watching her younger sibling, I can't find childcare. Well, the early learning hub's in the room. And the judge can say, okay, you have a $500 fine, but in lieu of that fine, you're going to work with the early learning hub. And in 2 weeks, you both are going to come back to me and find out if we've got this problem solved or not. And I can give you example after example of that happening. And it's really helped our school districts out collectively. This is not a one school district success story. It is all 5 of my largest districts in the county have shown the same amount of growth. So what it's telling us, or what that is telling us, is that it is a systemic success. It's the system that's working. It's not just an individual school district that's doing something that has success.
Any questions for Mark?
No, I'm good.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Mark.
Appreciate that.
I got a quick question, if you don't mind, Mark. What's the scale? Like where do you, obviously kids aren't going to school, and then how far till you get to the fine, and then what is the fine?
Yeah. Can you still hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. So the scale it's district dependent. And we have you have situations where you have students that have a medical issue, and maybe they have to see a doctor every Tuesday and Thursday. They don't end up in this. The school districts are working with those families. Those families are working with the school districts. The scale is once you hit that 10% threshold where you've missed more than 10%, obviously the school district's engaging the parents. And if the parent is engaging the school districts at that time, it very rarely gets to the hearing. What gets to the hearing is when the parent refuses to engage with the school district, talk to the school district, meet with the school district, and try to solve the issue. And, Jeff can explain situations in his district where this occurs in all of our districts. And there is no leverage to have that parent come in and have a conversation with you. This is that leverage. And even when it goes to that hearing, I give you an example. We had 35 hearings and only one resulted in a fine. The fine is $500. That's what it is. But it rarely gets to that because of all these things being put in place. These school districts have letters that get drafted home. They have mandatory meetings where they meet with parents, where they call parents. Like there are a lot of other steps to get to this point where you end up being in a hearing. And so it's like I said, 35 last year, we got 6,000 kids in the county. And I think it's important for school districts to understand if they just went and handed out fines over and over and over again and inundated the justice system with this, it's going to fall flat on its face. That will not work. The research will tell you that it doesn't work. What is working is the school districts doing everything they possibly can up to a certain point, and then they need a little leverage at the end to kind of get that parent to work with them and solve the problem.
I'm sure it's very frustrating for superintendents who have seen this dismal, fall of our achievement rates and the attendance. Oregon is one of only 2 states that has pulled back from allowing some kind of consequences for truancy. But as I learned early on doing this job, working with Safe Families and other groups, that government is a terrible parent. Government was never meant to parent children. We are seeing woefully inept, disengaged parents, and the children are the ones who are facing this fallout. I think that the issue is with the Oregon Department of Education. They've pulled every requirement for any kind of achievement, taken away any kind of truancy consequences, and constantly look at how we can make it easier for kids to get through school and come out and learn nothing. And our colleges have to do remedial reading for these kids to even be ready. I think parents are taking their children out of the government schools for a reason. Then there's the subset that's just not interested one way or another. They're not homeschooling. They're not sending them to private school. They're doing nothing. When we then try to add the stick to the carrot, I know if you look at some of the programs that the county through HHS provides, you cannot have more robust and the wraparound that exists. I mean, we've got one on the agenda today where basically there is no stone left unturned to try to get parents and kids and everybody engaged and fixed. But I don't think one more program, one more law, anything is going to fix other than what the state of Oregon has done to public education. I think it's abysmal. I think it's reprehensible because these are the kids who come out and are not equipped to go to work because they can't read. So I'm one of these people who says, a truancy law, compulsory education basically says the state is requiring you to send your kid to school. I, as more of a leaning more towards libertarian philosophy, is the state does not have that right. The state doesn't have the right to tell people how to parent. I agree with you. It's a good thing if the kids are in school. I am not somebody who thinks another ordinance or another law is. I mean, you'll get them there, but I think it's a concern for me about how government has really overstepped its bounds. So that's pretty much. But I agree with you 100% when you hear what Superintendent Redmond is saying about that the truancy rate is just dropped because you have to be there. I think that's a good thing, but I don't feel comfortable being one who says that we should be forcing this.
And I can appreciate that perspective, Mary. Commissioner Starrett, sorry.
Okay.
I also share some of those concerns about the philosophic, foundation of some of these decisions along the way. And I'm a practitioner who greets kids every day, and I would just say that the children are waiting. And so while government is not a good parent, we do have a law on the books that requires regular attendance in school, and we need help in holding our parents accountable to that. And that is a return to past practice. And that for me, this feels like a public health concern because they are our citizens, they are our students that will be with us and living in our communities. And with our help, they can have a family living wage and overcome all of the obstacles that they are experiencing. But without our help, they won't have that.
But I think we know that less government works very well when the citizens are responsible. Unfortunately, we are facing, I think, a crisis of irresponsible adults who have children and are sitting back. And this is generalization. This is not all of these parents, but a lot of parents that we have within our community where this is an issue of attendance are also ones who believe that they'll just be taken care of, that they don't have to be self-sufficient. They don't have to be hardworking. They don't need to have those soft skills. They don't need to have the literacy rates that, it'll be taken care of, right? The government will take care of them. And so unfortunately, when their kids don't come to school, we are inducing a replication of that goes generation by generation. And like I said, I think within Amity, a lot of the families that we see are now third and fourth generation poverty families. And so to try to break that does require some intervention. And the school is more than happy to do all of the heavy lifting on the front side of that. But it does require the parents to be engaged in that process in order for it to be successful. And so I completely understand what you're saying about government not being a good parent. Amity School District is very upfront about that. We are here to support parents, not be the parents. They are not our children. We are here to provide a service. Parents have other options for that service besides Amity School District. But if your child is coming to our school district, then we have a responsibility to do everything we can to help that child be successful in school. And again, for better or for worse, school districts are going to be held accountable. If you've looked at the latest legislation around accountability, by 2029, there are going to be some pretty serious ramifications for districts who are not making progress in some of these areas, including ODE. What's the right way to say it?
Well, they will.
Taking
they will
control
take-
over your local school districts,
They
which is very
will
scary.
determine how our local dollars are spent on education, and we feel like we are better positioned.
And
to
I'm sure ODE is not listening to this right now. Maybe they'll listen to a recording of it later. I don't trust them at all to educate my children. Generally, ODE is not staffed with educators. If you want to know the truth, most of the people that work there have never worked in a school building. So that's a scary proposition for school districts, I think, communities. We would like to do everything we can to avoid that ever happening. And I know Sheriff Elliott and I had a conversation yesterday. I don't want to speak for him, but I know that they see the same thing, the same families over and over again. And there's a connection there between those families that are getting a lot of visits from law enforcement and their kids are not in school. And the more we can do to prevent the next generation of those students having to have that type of interaction with law enforcement, the better as well. And I know there's a challenge in Yamhill County with how the court is set up, that it is a circuit court, and so it has to uphold state law. So I think that's where the task force has to come up with some solutions for a workaround to that as well. And I think talking to Sheriff Elliott, he has some ideas about how that can happen. That's kind of outside of my expertise, but we're more than happy to be a part of a task force with educators and law enforcement and county personnel and other agencies to be able to find the best possible solutions we can for this to try to provide the best future we can for our kids, especially our at-risk ones.
Do you guys have more to your presentation?
There's just a proposal slide. And again, Jeff pretty much covered that right now. We're not asking for a decision today. We're asking for permission to launch a task force to look into this more carefully and to see how it might fit for us in our community. There's different pillars of it that will be, Commissioner King asked about alignment within the school districts and kind of the way that a family will progress through that. That alignment is part of that dive. We also need to look into how it would work with the current laws and structures within here. So that is our ask today, is just the opportunity to dive into this as a community and come up with a response that works locally for us.
I know in talking to, there's 7 school districts here in Yamhill County, and all of us are on the same page on this. None of us will have a hard time buying in and being consistent across these districts in terms of whatever the process that's put into place is. Everybody is eager for a better solution, whether you're in Willamina and some of their unique challenges, or in Newburgh. Everybody's dealing with attendance issues and some of these same types of cultural challenges. And everybody will very quickly partner up across. You don't get that very often among 7 school districts of varying size and communities, but this is a piece of this is a piece of the puzzle that is critical to every school district, and we're all struggling with the same problems.
Thank you. Is there any other questions from the board?
Just in terms of, I always comes down to what is the county's buy-in and what do you need specifically from us, and how does that impact? I know there were conversations with Sheriff Elliott, but really what does that look like in terms of what is our function?
Maybe it'll help if I give a little background. So a lot of this stemmed from a conversation that I had with Courtney, and then Jeff chimed in a few minutes later. This has been going on for multiple months, probably 6 or 7 months. I went to admin to see what the process is to basically do a truancy court in Yamhill County. And so the process was, well, let's do a task force to see what that looks like and what the processes are. So I think during that task force process, that's what we'll start figuring out. And you guys can chime in if you do have information, but a little bit of back picture. When I started emailing different county departments on number one, would you be interested in being on this task force? I've never had quicker responses or more affirmative yeses to anything that I've ever emailed to multiple departments: juvenile, the sheriff's office, Director Manfred. I mean, to me, it's not like on the same level, but I think the same pieces might be there for like our drug courts and how it interacts with a lot of the different county departments. So I see this as kind of the same, but this is the fact-finding mission to get to those questions. And I'm very appreciative that Commissioner Sterrett has those concerns now, because now we know what to look at. And it sounds like you've talked to Commissioner King. So I feel like we're in a good direction. This is just like a fact-finding mission. So I want to, I guess, put some perspective out there that I don't want it to make it seem like this is a definite, yes, we're going to do this. This is the task force that is going to put the pieces together to make it look like what that interaction is and whether this is a fit for Yamhill County. Because I don't know if it is or not. If we're only talking 35 cases, what does that look like to hire a part-time or maybe not even a judge, but well, what does it look like? So if you guys want to chime in, Commissioner Sterrett, if you have another question or.
No, and I appreciate you both so much, because I know that you are really dealing with you're dealing with behavior issues you never had to deal with or should have to deal with. You're supposed to teach, and the behavior issues are escalating. So thank you for that. And I know that you're dealing with, you're not getting a lot of help from the state. I would be very supportive of, I know that, when you look at what HHS does and all those various programs in the school, there are a lot of things and a lot of support. So I know that they're there. It's just getting the kids there. And I do have some questions about, how does this interface with the law? How can we basically, even if we push back and skirt that? And what are some, I'm never averse to pushing back on some of the unreasonableness at the state level, so.
So I guess, if you guys don't have anything further.
I was gonna say, I'll chime in. I'll
Yeah,
just
go ahead.
reiterate that there are a variety of different circumstances that lead to chronic absenteeism. And part of that is the school's job to kind of sort through that and figure out what's a reasonable solution. This is not a one size fits all. Oh, you're chronically absent, you're going into this pathway. And even once you're in that pathway, again, oftentimes this is a cultural helplessness a little bit for some parents. They just don't know how to parent or what resources are out there to help them. And so I think sometimes they don't engage with us because they don't like any authority figures, but other times they don't engage with us because they're embarrassed, they feel like a failure, they feel helpless. And so anything we can do to try to get them into an opportunity to engage with these different partners, we think you can change the course of some of those kids' lives pretty quickly for some of those families. There's going to be some that are obstinate, as Mr. Redmond talked about. You know, you might get to a citation, but that's not the goal. The goal is just to get them to engage and figure out what it is they need to be successful as parents and what we can do to help with that. So.
Appreciate that.
Can I go?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm, from what you presented today, I'm very supportive. I don't think we're here to talk about, Oregon state of their rules or whether or not private school is better or any of those things. You're asking us for a tool today and a task force. So I have kids in school. I know what it's like. My kids are in middle school. And yeah, since COVID, you've definitely seen these absence rates go up, right? And more kids doing it. So I would love to be a part of what you're doing. Thank you for the extra work. I only know my kids at school and what happens in there. I'm excited to learn more about what the other school districts are doing, what other schools are looking at. After we spoke, I've talked with a couple of different counties that are also looking at this and what Malheur County has done as well. And some have decided that this isn't the right thing, that having just making home visits has been enough. But these are very small counties that those numbers are if Mark has 35, and he's half our size, do we have 60? Do we have 80? What does that look like? So I'd love to be a part of it. Love to be on your task force. So yeah, thank you very much for coming here today.
Okay.
So as we're progressing, well, I guess do we have a consensus to go ahead and step up this task force? They're going to have to work with Jody and county admin to figure out what it looks like. Are we okay with them engaging on stepping up this task force?
Yeah, real quick, I just always want to ask in terms of workload, what's the division of labor, and everybody okay with what it would look like, but we don't know what it would look like, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's open right now. I'm not concerned as far as workload goes. I think the setting some direction for the task force and just kind of clarify process. I think if I understand correctly, this would really be because I think the request is looking at something similar to the Malheur County model, which they adopted an ordinance. And so it's really a county ordinance that this program would operate under. So at this point, the task force would actually be, similar to like other committees that we have. It's just that this is a limited kind of scope and mission and duration that's by the board. So I think establishing what the direction the board wants to give to the task force on what their ultimate, what the goal is.
Mm-hmm.
The second part is talk about who are the key stakeholders that the board would like at the table as members of that stakeholder group, looking both at the school districts, but then also looking internally with our departments, you know, juvenile, HHS, sheriff's office, you know, depending on the role and
Courts.
function with this. The courts would be another one. So thinking about that, you know, if you're not ready to do that, we could put together a framework to come back to, you know, so there's an actual action taken by the board on establishing the task force with some of that input,
Yep.
or you could just verbally state that now and you could proceed.
So yes, that's what I would recommend that we do, and I'd work with Jeff and Courtney to kind of set the base coat. I've put together a fairly, on at least the county side, it seems like there's a lot of engagement from different departments, so you already have that list, and then I know you recommended having like maybe a principal on there, maybe somebody from the WSD, and then somebody from the superintendent level. So I think we start with that base coat, plus then we use ordinances that are already there through Malheur. Plus there's also one other county that's done this.
I know Umatilla and Union County are both, I don't know if they've started it officially. They were in the process of moving that direction. I don't know if it's hit the point of actual enforcement yet. But
So I guess let's look at that one, and then come back to us with just kind of the base coat, and then
Okay.
we can.
I didn't think it would be good to compare the different frameworks, Malheur versus Union versus Umatilla, see how they vary, how they're similar, and maybe why they made the decisions they made to do something a little bit differently.
Lala brought something forward too as
Okay,
well.
thank
So if you want to.
Yeah.
Sorry. Sorry, Jody Gallon. We've done some research as to other counties. We've got Kirk County, Josephine County, Klamath County, and Union all have codes too. So those would be good ones to look at too.
Okay.
So if you guys on the preliminary side are still willing to put in the legwork, we're willing to listen and move forward.
And all.
No, I was just gonna say, I hope that you would include folks that are dealing with kids who, for instance, like Reach Northwest, which is dealing with foster kids, Lutheran Community Services, which is very much involved in parent training and counseling and things like that, and even CASA.
Do you know if the cities that have SROs have been involved as well? Is that kind of part of I mean, they usually get to know the kids and build that trust. And so at least there's one piece. So maybe involve I think Mac has one, Newburgh has a couple.
Yes, we spoke with our SRO last week in a district meeting, and he was surfacing some of the same struggles with that same bill that went through in, kids that are in the neighborhood during school time that might be vaping or engaging in sexualized behavior or causing,
Activity.
problems in the neighborhood. The law enforcement currently is really limited in what they can do. They can ask them to go back to class, but they can't cite them in the same way that they were before. So this is beyond just an attendance issue. It becomes a community issue as well.
Behavioral, yeah.
All right, sounds like we have a decent direction for you. All right,
So what's, just for clarification, what are our next steps then, and what does that look like going forward?
so I'd reach out to Ken or Jody or both, and then they'll get you, I'm assuming guided probably with Kevin or something, and yes.
One question, do the committee members need to be formally appointed? So that would be the next step.
I think everything approved by the
Yeah.
BOC.
So that would be the next step, is we need to come up with a list for the committee members.
Yeah, and that's where I was suggesting, and I can take a run at it, and I can be the contact for just kind of preparing the basic establishment of the task force and prepare something to come back before the board. So then you can identify the membership of positions you'd like to see on the task force. And then just, keeping in mind kind of the ultimate, need to give the task force some direction on what the board is kind of looking for an outcome on this. And if it's, as an example, if it's a truancy ordinance or code and then that's going to be subject to the whole other process that we have for adopting rules like this. So, so kind of keeping in mind that the task force will work on meeting those objectives that the board's going to outline, and I'll take a shot at putting together a memo for the board to take action on.
My biggest thing is want to make sure that we minimize county cost to this because that's where you'll start, no matter what board is up here, that's where you'll start losing them. And then maximize the use of the programs we already have, which like Commissioner Starrett said, they're immense.
Yeah.
This is about connecting dots and getting parents the right information. So
And this is also basically just establishing a way to look at this.
Mhm.
The board has not taken any formal action on an ordinance or
Correct.
crafting an ordinance or anything. So I think information is always good. And I'm open for that, but it doesn't mean that we're saying, yeah, let's go ahead and
Right.
propose an ordinance.
So we'll hear from you, Ken?
Yeah.
Okay. That's good.
Can I ask one more question? Because I have a feeling I'm going to be helping Ken write this. So the direction of the task force is going to be to look at what other counties have done? Is that the direction that I'm hearing? Or is it more, let's come up with a full cloth new process?
for me, so to me, I wouldn't want to try to reinvent the wheel when you have it working in
Yeah.
another county. There may be fine tuning that needs to be done, but I think that's the main goal is look what's already there, look what's working. What does it look like for Yamhill County? I think setting up the committee is going to be very important from our HHS director, our sheriff, Judge Easterday at the courts. I've gotten approval from all those guys that they want to engage in this task force. So juvenile Jessica Beach wants to be involved with it. So I think that's going to be the main goal. And then to,
One more question. So a deliverable, are you looking for a recommendation from them? Or are you looking for an actual ordinance that they're going to propose?
Yes, we're looking for the task force, I think will ultimately,
You want them to actually draft an ordinance?
yeah, but I think.
If
that's-
they decide to
that's
go
further
there?
Down the road.
Okay.
there's going to be a.
So start with recommendation and then if the recommendation gets approval, we'll, okay.
I think
Because
first step is,
there's going to be a lot that goes into it, because number one thing that goes through my mind is cost to the county, right? So that has to be sustainable through different boards.
Yeah.
And which means if you want it sustainable, it has to be very low cost and input, and it has to be programs that we already have.
Gotcha.
And then the other thing is the mechanism by which this court functions. I mean, what's the stick, what's the enforcement mechanism and what does that look like? Because, right now we have nothing. And maybe that is the piece that is a sticking point. So what piece, that's a big chunk.
Yeah, I mean, for me, we're starting from zero, other than we have some boilerplates that we can go look at. So I'm more than happy to bring this back in another, I'd work with Jody, but in like 6 months.
I don't think it requires bylaws. Okay, to write the task force
Do we need
order,
a-
that wouldn't take 6 months.
That's going to be quick.
Yeah,
I think we'll be back pretty quickly. And because again, I'm just envisioning basically it's going to be a board order establishing the task force with
parameters around what
Parameters
is expected.
and
from
who
them.
the board would like to see is the key stakeholders, meaning is there key people that need to be at the table as part of this discussion.
Perfect.
And an explanation as to when they need to come back in front of you so that it's clear.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would say that in some ways we are starting at zero, but in other ways we had something in place very recently. And so, when Judge Easterday did have attendance court that ended in 2018-19-ish, that they had all of those structures in place with HHS and all of those pieces. So a lot of the consequences that folks were offered were Lutheran or, wraparound services or check-in, check-outs with a, family advocate, those types of things. So I'm hoping we can bring back some of the things.
Cool. All right.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for the presentation.
Appreciate your time.
All right, F is department updates, there's none. G is work session, there's none. H is consent agenda, we have some minutes on there. I would move approval. Is there any further discussion?
None.
None.
None? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. I is old business, and this is the discussion of an ordinance regarding data centers. I have a few questions I scanned it a little bit. I guess the biggest one to me, and on right out of the beginning, the question that comes to me is, are we saying that data centers are allowed in EFU by doing this, I guess, would be my like number one biggest question to this. And it can either be you or Jody or
Can we get Ken up here?
and Ken.
When asking this, and I'll be hesitant in how to give the answer, but potentially there would be a loophole that yes, it potentially could happen, similar to I'm hesitant to say it out loud. You know.
Well, I mean, if it's there,
Yes,
it's there. I
there-
mean, it's public, so when you,
I didn't hear the first
Oh.
part.
Yeah, potentially there is a world where you could do it, and
Could, I'm
yeah,
I'm not following.
that a company could acquire EFU lands and operate a data center on there from EFU. Just in my opinion, it would be a loophole. It's a bit of a stretch from talking with Jody, but stretches can happen with a lot of lawyer teams.
I think we need to bring our planning
go ahead.
director in
Yeah.
this, because this is not just a, hey, first of all, the data shows that almost 98% of the existing data centers are sitting in metro areas. That is not to say, I mean, there is a very long drawn out process by which you change what is allowed in the county. Can you just go through what that process is?
Well, is this on, by the way?
I can hear, I think.
Okay, good. I couldn't see any light. I think I think someone could come in and make an application for a data center as a utility facility. And utility facilities are allowed in the farm zone if you're able to show that they can't be sited within the city limits in order to provide the service. And I think it would be difficult, not impossible, but difficult for a data center to do something like that. I think, we've seen with cell towers that, those are locationally dependent. I think a data center would be less so, less locationally dependent, and would probably be more in need of the infrastructure that a city would have. Does that mean that there's no concern about them going out into the farm zone? No, I think there's a legitimate concern for them being sited out in the farm zone. Do we have any that have come in and contacted our office? No, we haven't had any calls or people kicking the tires trying to find out how they could site them in Yamhill County. If we, in looking at the ordinance that was provided, I do think it would require Measure 56 notice. And I've talked a little bit to Jody about this, and I'd like to figure out a way that it wouldn't require, but I think it does require a notice to all property owners that would be affected. And the way that it's presented in this ordinance, it would just be the exclusive farm use zone. I kind of think back to what we did with solar facilities when we were seeing industrial scale solar facilities in the early 20 teens. In 2017, the board and planning commission initiated a amendment that was fairly simple and straightforward, which is you can't put a solar facility on class 1 through 4 soil unless you get an exception to the statewide planning goals, which is difficult to do, not impossible, but it's very difficult to do. And I could see something similar might be something that we could adopt to prohibit data centers. Having said that, I'm not sure that you'd want to prohibit all data centers. And in looking at the definition that was presented in the proposal, I'm really not sure what that I could describe what a difference is between a data center and a
Server room.
Server room, yeah. And I'm thinking that, if Linfield College came in and said, hey, we want to put a 5,000 square foot building And as a data center, I think, probably not very many people would have an objection to that. If a company came in and said, we want to put 50 acres of data center in Yamhill County, I think there would be a pretty fierce opposition to that. So I don't want to necessarily prohibit all of them, but I do want to get a gauge from the board as to what scale would be acceptable and what scale that we need for emergency services and for our own day-to-day needs.
What, did you initiate this
Yeah.
or did this come from planning?
No, I initiated it. It's something that I've been paying attention to, as Commissioner Starrett noted, that 98% of these are in the metro area. But whether we like it or not, we are a stone's throw away from the metro area and neighbors to most of these. And so it is a concern of mine that this, if it possibly could, then I don't want to be caught flat-footed in our values of wanting to have, keep farmland.
But don't we already have a process for that? With this, let's run this through. So if somebody comes into Yamhill County and wants to build a data center on EFU, they're going to go to Ken, and Ken's going to be like, well, this is conditional use. And so he has to go before a planning commission. No?
Nope. So, utility use is a permitted use. I believe it's subject to site design.
It's
So
a
there's
site
still-
design
yeah.
and showing that there is a need for it to be on the resource land in order to provide the service. And I could see an argument being made that, well, if I wanted to have 40 acres of land for a data center, and I look at all the cities, well, no one's got a 40-acre parcel in the city limits, so I have to put it in the rural area. I could see that being an argument. I'm not saying it'd be a successful argument, but I could see it being an argument to be made for it being on resource land.
So
And I would, this was just a stab in the dark. I appreciate Ken's knowledge in kind of maybe modeling this more after our solar farm ordinance that we already have, and you're using pieces of this one that I provided, or you're mainly using his.
where did this come from?
I got it, and they had some help with some land use attorneys and so on, just from people that I know and are interested in this topic.
So this is not Yamhill County written?
No.
Okay.
No, and I'm fine if it gets scrapped. I
Yeah, no,
I want it to be a discussion of.
Because
where we
I'm
stand.
looking at this
Yeah.
very broad, and I feel like this is going to open up a can of worms, kind
Sure.
of like we're doing right now
Yeah.
with the transportation facility and trying to figure out definitions on that.
Yeah.
I mean, this is
Yeah,
pretty
this-
broad, where I think if it did end up going this way, it would be detrimental to a lot of other, I think, agricultural related things. And I'm thinking that just on large scales, we're going to have more and more nut processing plants come in. That's could be considered industrial use. We have hay presses. I know it's ag related, but I could feel like this is broad enough to where it'd be dangerous. the
Yeah,
way
no,
it's
no,
written.
and I'm
That's
happy.
why I'm asking.
I'm happy for the
where
whole
the background is.
Yeah. Those, I think that's healthy conversation, and this is not what end all be all that I want this or nothing. This is really just wanting to preserve the values of Yamhill County, in keeping our farmlands, and if Lafayette wants a data center, by all means, go ahead. That's up to them, right? But this is really more just trying to keep the values of what I know Yamhill County is, and not wanting that creep of Hillsborough or metro area to further come in here. Because we do have the water. We do have, there are examples of places where this could potentially happen, right? And so yeah, I just not wanting to be caught flat-footed and, oh my God, what do we do? That's not what we want, but there's nothing we can do about it. So it's really where it stems from.
Well, I wouldn't say nothing. I mean, there's appeals processes
Sure,
for most
sure.
of it, so.
If I may, when Commissioner King brought this to me, I said, the process generally is you bring forward your recommendation, and then the board directs staff to move forward with either this specifically or something like it. So the process there's two pieces that I could read in this, in the resolution and in the drafted ordinance. There's the piece that relates to land use, which would require either this ordinance or a direction from the board to draft up a new ordinance similar to what Ken's saying. So it's not allowed on on high value resource lands, class 1 through 4 soils. And that would then get recommended to the planning commission, would go through the process, just like the transportation facility thing. So that's that piece. And then there's the second piece of the proposal, which is a prohibition on public property. And that doesn't require an ordinance as much as a board order. So that could be decided on relatively quickly by the board. The other one will take some time to work its way through that process. The land use process is a longer one.
Yeah, because
Obviously.
my other question,
Yeah.
in here it's written, and it mentions just county-owned land.
Sure.
Mhm.
And so I'm like, are we talking just about county-owned land? Because then it's just like, well, what are we talking about here?
Yeah,
It'd be up to the,
Up to the board,
Up to
yes,
the
if we
board.
want to sell that or not, but.
So a couple of things. First of all, a resolution doesn't do anything. You know, we've got a land use process, which is extremely in-depth. But this pretty much mirrors what's being done. So for instance, the Chehalem Parks and Recreation has a park which was designated to be used for agricultural related things. And so now there's a petition because they want to put bikes back on it when they were concerned that horses and bikes don't mix. The other thing I want to say is that there's wording in here that talks about restricting future boards. So I want to make sure that we don't overstep our bounds in terms of what we can and cannot do. I have concerns about the genesis of this and what it is going to require us to do.
Meaning,
Well, what is it going to require in terms of if, you can come and say, well, we don't want data centers and we have a resolution and a proposed ordinance, but it's not that simple. So I think what we're doing here today is just detailing what it does mean and what it would entail.
yeah, and I think just seeing where you guys, this is where we communicate, right? Are you guys interested in, the way I see it, preserving that value and moving forward? Obviously, this one that I brought forward is not, necessarily, but this isn't the best one, right? And so staff has some opinions to weigh in, which I deeply value, and interested in moving the conversation forward. But the conversation can't move forward unless there's a board majority. So are you interested in having in continuing this and having staff draft a proposal that is similar to the solar farm ordinance that we already have? Are you just saying, no, this is silly, we don't need to do this? Are you, this is where we communicate. So it's something that's important to me that I've been trying to work on and see where you guys land. So,
Yeah.
And if you want to give 2 cents about what's in there and what's not, then that's great.
I gave my 2 cents. I think this is super aggressive. I think it's going to open up some can of worms that we probably don't want to see. But
Yeah.
if we want to address it to a point and on the same level as a solar farm and specifically call out a data center, but then I also see issues with that as far as trying to define what a data center is. So right now, there's a process in place that it can be appealed. So it's not like somebody's going to shove a solar or a data center down our throat. So I guess I don't feel as bad as this, like getting caught flat-footed when that appeal process is there. So I guess I'm going to be on the side of, I don't think we need to do anything. I mean, you can tell me I told you so later, I guess. But
Yeah.
right now, I feel like that safeguard is there already, with also leaving there people's rights to do what they want with their property within the rules and regulations. So I feel like it's there. The only thing that I would recommend is that you could almost make it like a conditional use, but again, you're going to get into definitional issues.
If I can add, the site design review provisions that does allow me to do it as what's called a type B application, where if I get an application in, usually a site design review is just the director issues a decision immediately, and that decision then is subject to a 15-day period to appeal. I can tell you, if I got a data center in, I would do it as a type B, and I would probably almost definitely would send it to the planning commission, because it'd be a new use that I hadn't dealt with before, and I wouldn't want it just to be me making the decision. I would want to have the planning commission weigh in and make the decision. And that would require a hearing, notice before the hearing, of course, and then the decision would have another 15 days to appeal it to the board. So I can tell you as director, as long as I'm here, I would do a data center, at least the first couple, as a type B application, and send it to the planning commission for them to make the decision. May make a recommendation, but them to make the decision.
Just clarify the one thing. That's site design, so the use itself is not what will be at issue.
Yeah, it's
So,
whether the
to clarify
need,
that.
the need for it to be on farmland
Mhm.
is what would be really be the key part of the
Yeah.
decision, right?
And I don't want to restrict nut farms or processing plants. I mean, that's definitely not. And there is some language in there about what defines a data center. And I think there's probably, we could go further into that and, you know, maybe even allowing a square footage of what that means. If Linfield wanted to have a server room, a dedicated server building or something to that effect, I'm completely open to that conversation, right? It's where we're using a lot of our resources of water and power and those things starting to come online. So that's more where I'm coming from in this. And obviously you having that background of nuts is important. And, you know, just the other industries in processing, you know, winery take a lot of power, you know, and so I don't want to restrict those things, right? And those are important to Yamhill County. And yeah, I'm by no means trying
Have
to restrict.
you reached out to any data centers to
No,
like ask their process?
just other
the
county,
reason I
just other
asked-
commissioners. Yeah.
The only reason I asked that is I have started the process just kind of behind the scenes, because
Yeah.
you brought
yeah.
this before us, and even a few months before, you know, it makes the news that
Yeah.
these are prevalent. And we had somebody give comment before us, be like, we just need to stop this right now. I'm like, well, that's not, to me, that's not
how
the
it works.
appropriate
Yeah.
process.
Yeah.
It's, let's ask the questions. And so I started reaching out to some data centers. I'm still waiting to hear back. But initially, from a few, not actual data centers, but people that helped with them, it's not 100% true that they're a big giant monster coming in and gobbling up all your water.
It
all your
depends on what the
power.
kind it is. Yeah.
If it is, fine, we can have that information, but to not have that conversation with at least them first to confirm that and then start dealing with some of this, I think is not fair to the process. So I'm gonna recommend that we just table this. I don't know for how long, I guess, until you want to bring it back up again, but I'd like time just to start digging into on the data center side, what the actual waste is. I know she meant the lady that came before us, she mentioned noises, a bunch of different things. I just want to wrap my head around on the data center side, because I don't know.
So doing some research on the current technology that's being used, yes, there are concerns about water and all of the various power, things like that. But when you talk about the technology that is in the pipeline that those in the business are working on just to address these concerns, it has to do with battery backup and using less energy and not using water that's evaporated, but water that's recirculated. So they are addressing those, knowing that those concerns are out there. So I want to make sure that when we address this, that we know what we're talking about and we define our terms. And right now, the terms are really a little bit, it's a moving target. So it might seem like a big scary monster now, but we don't know what's going on down the pike. So I am not in favor of making any kind of doing anything right now. I think we should just put this aside and keep our eye on it and continue to do some homework.
I agree.
Okay.
Are you okay with that?
It doesn't really matter. Those are just two. But yeah, I mean, I would like to keep moving forward on it, but I understand where you guys are coming from, and you know, the wait and see is an option. So.
Well, not really. What I just lined out was to reach out.
If you
at
want
least
to keep doing research,
for
that's
me, yeah.
great. Yeah, I think.
I mean, if you want to
that's phenomenal.
bring them before us and have them educate us too, I mean,
Sure.
that'll kind of keep the ball in your court and it
Yeah.
moving along, but
Okay, yeah.
at least that's where I'm coming from.
Yeah,
I
and
need
if-
more
if-
information
if
and
either one of us have something to bring forward, I think that's great. That's, yeah, definitely wasn't looking for a yes or no today.
Okay.
So, yeah, I'm fine with gathering more information and
Okay.
you doing the same. I think that's great.
okay, cool. All right, moving on.
Thank you, Ken.
Thanks, Ken.
We are on to J is other business. J1's consideration approval amendment number 3 to an agreement between Yamhill County and the Oregon Department of Transportation, Board Order 05-558, extending the lease for the Chehalem Communications site and increasing rent to the amount of $10,209.41 with a 3% increase over the prior year's rates through June 30, 2030, unless earlier amended. I would move approval. Is there any further discussion?
None.
Done for me.
Done? Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. J2's consideration and approval of an application for a rural industrial tax exemption as allowed by Yamhill County Code, section 3.25. Derek reviewed is Derek online? Well, I guess first, does anybody have any questions on it, I guess?
No, I was there at the opening, the original opening years ago, and it was quite a big production. So we're grateful for the introduction of that into our county.
Yep. And assessor reviewed it all. It seems pretty straightforward. And you want to chime in on anything there, Kevin?
Yeah, we also have Nyoke Kuze from St. Kuzair that is prepared to give just a brief overview of what their company is doing and what this project really is, because this is our first application under this this program, which was implemented in January of 2025. So
I'd like to see that
Yeah.
if you're prepared. Yeah.
Absolutely.
You all know me, Art.
Yeah. Good
Yeah.
morning, Arthur.
I'm moral support.
Yes, absolutely.
Sure.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much for this time. My name is Naoki Kuze. I'm President CEO of St. Kuzair Inc. We're applying for rural industrial tax exemption, and thank you very much. And talking about our company, so we are located in Newburgh, Oregon, and we have 39,000 square feet, our production base. And from here, we are producing jam, jelly, ketchup, barbecue sauce, and many different items. And we ship out from Oregon to the United States, all over to the United States. Since Mary came to our facility at the start in 2017, we are blessed to grow, and the most current year, 2025, we achieved $12 million as a sales, and we want to expand more growth to cherish into this society. And we have, different brands, Kuzefuku and Sons, to Portlandia Ketchup, Bonnie's, Kelly's Jelly, Blake Hill as our brand portfolio. And with this expansion, just before January to June, we only had 38 employees. But with this expansion today, we are happy to start the second shift that could enroll more employment. And now we have 48 employees, and I think it's gonna grow more than 50 sometimes 2027. And we are currently working with the county to set a new building right next to our current warehouse space, and that will support our second shift production and also employ more, hire more employees to this site. And I'm hoping that you could support for this tax exempt for our company. Thank you very much.
Thank you. What, remind me what the total project cost is?
It is the $1.2 million investment for this new plant.
Nice.
So 75% of the taxing districts have to approve. They have to sign off on this, and that includes the county as well. And you did include a breakdown of what that would be for each taxing district. So the next step is for you to approach the different taxing districts and see if they would, sign off on this. Who does that, Arthur? That's the company itself going and making those requests,
That's right.
and then come back before the board, or is this just a done deal once they've gotten that approval?
So if they do receive that approval, they'll file it with the assessor, and then on an annual basis, they'll file a report showing that they still are complying with the conditions in your board order. But there isn't a decision to come back before the board once they're done with the taxing jurisdictions.
So you have to work with WorkSource Oregon to basically establish that you're meeting those benchmarks, right? Okay. All right.
Yes.
But we'd still like a presentation, Larry.
Yeah, it's kind of nice. And it's a beautiful facility.
I didn't know you guys
Thank you
did
very
more
much.
than
Yeah.
catch up. That's pretty cool. I love that. And I know some of those jams as well. They're very good.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would
Thank you
move
for coming.
approval. Is there any further discussion?
None.
None. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for
Thanks
coming.
Thanks, Arthur.
J3 is consideration approval to authorize Lindsay Manfrin or designee on behalf of Yamhill County Health and Human Services to submit an application for funding from Yamhill Early Learning Hub / Yamhill Community Care Organization in the amount of $6,000 to purchase infant and child safety equipment.
I would move approval.
Motion's been made. Any further discussion?
None?
None. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. J, force consideration of approval to authorize Lindsay Manfrin or designee on behalf of Yamhill County Health and Human Services to submit an application for funding from the Yamhill County Community Care Organization in the amount of $5,500 for alcohol and drug barrier removal supports.
I would move approval.
Motion's been made. Any further discussion?
None for me.
None. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. J5 is consideration approval of amendment number 1 between Yamhill County and ODOT, Board Order 25-255 for grant agreement number 35825 to extend the expiration date to September 30, 2027, and to increase the grant amount to $2,004,045. I would move approval. Is there any further discussion?
None?
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. J6 is consideration approval amendment number 1 to contract number. Is that an I? I think that's an I. IT 27001GS between Yamhill County and Cherry Road Technologies, Inc., Board Order 21-361, to incorporate a customer support agreement with Oracle Corporation and providing revised terms and conditions effective upon full execution through August 27, 2031. I would move approval. Is there any further discussion?
None.
None.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. J6 is consideration approval of a contract between Yamhill County Public Works and Construction Ahead, Inc., DBA Pavement Surface Control, Board Order 26-242 for the 2026 Highway Striping Services Project 2 in the amount of, gee, many Christmas, you guys. $406,782.32 effective August 26, 2026 through October 31st, 2026. I would move approval. Is there any further discussion?
None.
Just for the minutes, you said J6. This is J7. So
Oh, J7, sorry. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
tongue twisters.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, we're going to take a quick 5-minute break. And then we'll be on to K. We are ready. All right, we are back from our little break. We are on to K, which is our public hearings, and K1 is receipt of public comment for community development block grant for the Juliet's House Clinical Services Expansion Project.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
I believe there is quite a bit of public comment. Ken, I think you have those.
Just 1 minute. I just want to make sure we're following process.
Oh, certainly.
Because this is a public hearing, so we should open the public hearing and then
Okay. So this is item K, it's a public hearing. I'm opening it up at 11:27 a.m. and it is to be in receipt of public comment for community development block grant for the Juliet's House Clinical Services Expansion Project. Do you want to, we can have Russell give kind of a just a quick bullet point overview again, and then we'll open it up for public comment. Can you bring up everybody on the TV that's online? Perfect. Okay, go ahead, Russell. Good.
So the project that we've outlined, that we've been speaking with Arthur about, and we presented to you all 2 weeks ago, is very simply, it's a building acquisition close to our current campus, adjacent to our current campus, that will allow us to expand some services that we need. We are, even with the new building that we built 2 years ago, we are landlocked and we need some more space in order to see more kids and provide those services, not only for the children themselves, but also for the parents that we work with. We do a lot of skill buildings and so parenting education work as well. One of the key pieces of this building would be to do more work around appropriate drug testing for kids who've been exposed to illicit drugs. Right now, we don't have a proper means of doing that. We're working with Child Protective Services. They really want us to do more of that as they bring cases to us where we know drug endangerment is a big component. And we only recently in our community, and actually throughout the state, have set the standard of testing those kids with a measure that is appropriate for kids, working with the National Drug Endangered Child Association. So that's one component of it. Also expanding our assessment capabilities. Right now, we can only do one assessment at a time. We just don't have the room to expand without extensive remodeling of our current facilities. So the proposal is to get funding through the CDBG to purchase a building. Any remodeling will be done through a capital campaign that we will do separate outside of this particular grant.
But the building is move-in ready.
The building is move-in ready. I was in it last night.
Okay. So now we're going to take public comment. Is there anybody in the audience or online that would like to give public comment? If you're online, raise your virtual hand. Seeing none online, I'm going to go to the one that's in the room, which is Arthur Chaput. So go ahead.
Thank you, Commissioner. I have a question. So first off, remember Business Oregon's role is not to tell the county whether you should or shouldn't do this project, right? We're technical assistance and if you want to go for it. And so in light of that, is this your official public hearing to, yes. So did you publish a notice last week? Okay. So just one note, in order to do that properly, you do need to read the public hearing and it's the notice in its entirety. That's just want to clarify that. And I don't know why that's the rule exactly, but that is the rule.
thank you.
Yeah.
Let me grab that. And I'll do that.
Okay.
Oh, boy. I'm glad this is so lengthy.
It's very long.
All right, so bear with me. Okay, so public notice, notice of public hearing. Yamhill County is eligible to apply for a 2026 Community Development Block Grant from Business Oregon. Community Development Block Grant funds come from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. The grants can be used for public facilities and housing improvements, primarily for people with low and moderate incomes. Approximately 11 million will be awarded to Oregon non-metropolitan cities and counties in 2026. The maximum grant that a county can receive is $1,040,000 for design and construction. But we're applying, that's not correct.
Yeah.
It's 1.5.
Acquisition,
It's 1.5 million,
but for acquisition, not construction and,
correct.
okay.
Let's see, the county is preparing an application for a 2026 Community Development Block Grant from the Business Oregon for Juliet's House Clinical Services Expansion. The project is an acquisition request to purchase a building for child abuse assessment, medical advocacy, and therapy capacity. A public hearing will be held by the Yamhill County Board of Commissioners at 10 a.m. on Thursday, August 20th, 2026 at the Yamhill County Government Services Buildings Commissioners Hearing Room. The purpose of this hearing is for the Board of Commissioners to obtain citizen views and to respond to questions and comments about community development and housing needs, especially the needs of low and moderate income persons, as well as other needs in the community that might be assisted with the Community Development Block Grant project and the proposed project. Written comments are also welcome and must be received by August 19th, 2026 by 5 p.m. and submitted via email at bocinfo@yamhillcounty.gov. Both oral and written comments will be considered by the Yamhill County Board of Commissioners in deciding whether to apply. Let's see, I need to read the whole notice?
Unfortunately,
Yeah,
yes.
great. The location of the hearing is accessible to people with disabilities. Please call Yamhill County Board of Commissioners office at 503-434-7501 if you need any special accommodations to attend or participate in the meeting. More information about the Oregon Community Development Block Grants, the proposed project, and the records about the county's past use of Community Development Block Grant funds is available for public view at the Yamhill County Board of Commissioners office at 400 Northeast Baker Street, McMinnville, Oregon 97128 during regular office hours. Advance notice is requested. If special accommodations are needed, please notify the Board of Commissioners office at 503-434-7501 so that appropriate assistance can be provided. Permanent involuntary displacement of people or businesses is not anticipated as a result from the proposed project. If displacement becomes necessary, alternatives will be examined to minimize the displacement and provide required/reasonable benefits to those displaced. Any low and moderate income housing that is demolished or converted to another use will be replaced. And that's the end of the notice.
Thank you, Ken. Sorry about that.
Okay, no worries. So I'll ask for public comment again then. If you're online, raise your virtual hand. Seeing none. If you're in the audience, raise your hand. No, okay, seeing none. With that, I can probably close out the public hearing. Okay, I'm going to close out this.
I would just add that there's significant online or emailed and lettered public comment.
Yep. Yep, it's been received. Thank you.
Okay.
So with that, I'm going to close this out at 11:36. Thank you. And now that leaves it up for discussion.
Chair, I just had a question about, and this would be an Arthur question. So can you clarify that the amounts that are allowed for each county, is there a limit? Because I wanted to make sure the Cove Orchard piece doesn't, I know they're separate buckets of money, but does that mean an overall award for the county or for each particular segment of the CDBG grant?
It's project specific. each county may apply for up to 2 projects at one time. And there are some other complicated rules around how many open projects you can have at one time. But you may apply for both of these at the same time and receive the full award. But it's a competitive program and it's not very common for counties or applicants to receive both grants at once. And so we'll ask you in your applications to tell us which one is the county's higher priority. And if we can only award one, that's the one we'll award. I have seen applicants receive 2 grants at once before, but it's not common, especially if it's a competitive application cycle.
So I just want to, how would we be prepared to answer that, knowing that the Cove Orchard project is something we've been doing and is really kind of critical to, so how would we address that? Again, it's like splitting the baby. How do we take 2 really important things and decide how we address those?
That's a good question. Business Oregon doesn't have a position about which should be your priority, but we would ask that when you submit the applications, you tell us which one is your priority, just in case we can only afford to fund one or the other.
Okay.
So before we get started, how would we deal with that?
Well, yeah, Ken, go ahead.
I'd be looking for direction from the board. I think the board had already approved the Cove Orchard application. I would recommend that you consider the next request, and then maybe a third action could be prioritization of the 2 applications. If there's the decision of the board is to proceed with this application, so we have 2, then I would ask probably for some direction on the third one on priority. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah.
It does. Yeah. So while your microphone's hot, cost wise, that was a concern of mine last time.
Right.
So do you have a ballpark? I'm not asking for exact.
Right.
Just line it out for me roughly what we're looking at.
So this was a tough one because there are some unknowns, as far as, because the one part that I do want to emphasize, because submitting the application, this is coming from Yamhill County. And so we'll be working on this one. I'd be working directly with Juliet's house and, doing kind of the meat of the application. Or first there's an intent notice, and then you get the invitation to apply. And then that invitation to apply, I'd be looking for Juliet's house assistance and kind of filling in the meat of the application. Admittedly, I had a little bit of a sneak peek because I already looked at what Mark Lago's working on for the Cove Orchard grant. So I looked at the 18-page application and saw what was going to be required in there. Admittedly, I think there's going to be some duplication, for what we're going to have in both applications. And then there's going to be stuff that's going to be more project specific. So I'd be looking at Juliet's house. So I looked at and how I came up with this estimate is I'm looking at the application process. We're going to have to fill out and submit the application with the input. And then there's going to be steps that should it be awarded, agreements, entering into a sub-agreement, because Juliet's house, the county's going to receive the funds, and then Juliet House would be a sub-recipient of those funds. I think the biggest question marks that I have is around the environmental review and how much, and looking at just because it looks like with the federal funds and the requirements, because we're the recipient, a lot of the federal requirements and the steps you have to go through with an acquisition project, that's the environmental, the procurement process, everything that you have to go through as part of that. Juliet's house is going to be responsible to follow that because we're going to be obligated to follow that. So that'll be spelled out in the agreement. So, and then there's the monitoring afterwards. I do agree that with this being an acquisition project, I think financial administration and looking at an outside entity like COG to assist with the grant administration and reporting and things, with this being an acquisition versus kind of like a multi-phase development project that may require more of a reporting burden and more steps to go through, and you are maybe doing reimbursements. I do see this as a much simpler kind of administrative process as far as getting invoices and making sure that the money's flowing, and then also that the reports are flowing back, you know, as we report on this project. You know, that being said, I came up with the ballpark. It's under 5,000 that I really see as the administration, just looking at council time, my time, you know, depending on who I assign this with as far as drafting, because we already have model sub-agreements that we've used in other grant programs that we'd be able to utilize and update. So there's some cost savings with some of those templates that we already have in place. So again, that's a very rough ballpark.
Okay. Arthur, remind me, liability wise, and I'm not saying Juliet's house wouldn't follow through, but something maybe, you know, Russell moves on and because he's a great leader and now the next leader's maybe not as well in tune and something falls apart. Liability wise, where's Business Oregon at with this? I know you mentioned it last time you were here, but let's just talk about it one more time. You do not want this back. And so you're going to be right there to make sure that we can find ways to navigate if the building doesn't end up being used for what the original purpose was.
I'll give that a shot, Commissioner. And then I brought along Shelby Gonzalez, who's just joined us virtually here. I wonder if you might let her speak too. I'll give that a shot and then we'll let her clean up my mess.
You bet. You bet. Yep.
So I think that was referring to the continued use conversation that we had. The rule is that after the project is complete, the facility needs to operate as described in the block grant application for at least 5 years. And you'll need to record a deed restriction, you know, enforcing that. We don't monitor for compliance during that 5-year period, but if, let's say, I saw a notice in the paper that the building was for sale or something like that during that 5-year period, we would be liable to HUD for that. And so we would talk to the county about how are you going to make sure this building stays in use for a block grant eligible activity. We don't want the money back, as I said last time. And so if Juliet's house disappeared as an entity, we do our best to try to help you figure out a solution. What else can you use this for that's compliant with the program? Shelby, what would you say to correct my my explanation there?
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Arthur, nothing to be corrected. Just to add on that, yes, prior to the completion of the project and actually prior to your final disbursement of funds for the project, I will be asking for that deed restriction showing that, you know, within 5 years, you can't change the use of it, which is to help the children, the mission of Juliet's house. And so within that 5-year period, I'm not coming around knocking, driving by the building, making sure it is still being used for that. However, it would still be liable if HUD were to audit a closed project and say, hey, we want to come look at this. That could happen. Like Arthur said, it could be a public facing thing where someone knows that CDBG funds paid for this building and it's changing use or for sale. Or it could be a legal matter where, you know, you as the county, as a responsible entity in the project, are filing this deed restriction, granting this building to Juliet's house. They can't change the use within 5 years. And so that could be handled at the local level as well if there's an issue within use within 5 years. So those are just things to think about. I have never come across a project, a current project or a closed project where this has been an issue. And once you hit that 5-year period, you are welcome to tear it down and turn it into a McDonald's. We obviously hope that that's not the case, but that's where that restriction does end. And I have provided letters to other communities where they've hit that 5-year and want to confirm, like, yes, this is my end date for the change of use restriction.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
I have a couple of questions. I always want to go to worst case scenario, because ultimately this is not about the work that Juliet's house does. This is obviously what Juliet's house does is amazing and important. A couple of things. In terms of, we've had a couple of situations where the county was involved with some very uncomfortable situations regarding grant money. And one of them had to do with YCAP, one of them had to do with the YMCA. And so I want to look at the sort of the clawback provisions and sort of getting ahead of anything that could be an issue. We have been in those situations before. So when we're looking at, for instance, a particular project that is not, let's say we have another COVID. Let's hope we never do. But let's say we have another lockdown like that, where you're not able to see clients and then you're not able to get the reimbursements. And we're looking at a situation where we have sort of a defunct operation with, absolutely, nothing that you created. How do we, so I'm looking at that, let's say $1.5 million, $1.2 million, how do we, we're on the hook for that. And that becomes our liability. And that's what I'm looking at, is not that it would, not that you have any track record that shows that you would, but I'm looking at the liability, and this has become our grant, and HUD doesn't play. We know with past CDBGs that they really are extremely, there's a lot to it, and the whole thing probably needs to be revamped, maybe at the congressional level, because we can do more with that money if we're allowed to. So I'm looking at the audit part of that, our finance department, just the fact that this came late in the game, and we've been working on Cove Orchard for a while, and I feel like we're just kind of scrambling to get this done. I am concerned about that. I don't know that CDBG is the correct vehicle for this project.
If I may, Commissioner, we never stopped seeing kids even during COVID. We changed how we saw them, but we never stopped servicing our community. And we've got, next year's our 30th anniversary. We're not going anywhere. I have a tremendous board of directors. I've got a tremendous staff. And in every sort of critical situation, we have pivoted and continued to serve our community. The only thing I could think is if God forbid we should have the big earthquake and everything was shut down, that would be a different sort of situation. And we would obviously work with Business Oregon and the county, not only to address that immediate situation, but obviously how then do we get back into the service of utilizing this property for the means that we intended to in this application. So I don't know if there's any, I guess my point is the track record. When you all donated the ARPA funds to us to build our building, we had a seamless process working with the county, doing our reports. Yes, there are hiccups there. There were delays in getting materials during that time, but we continue to work and we continue to see kids. And we actually, the building that we're talking about, we rented out part of it to continue our therapy programs. So again, we're very good at pivoting and continuing the services that we provide because they're essential to the families and the kids in Yamhill County.
Agreed. And I do recognize that, and I want to applaud you for that. The other question I had to do with the Family Justice Center. I know there's been a big effort in this county to do that. And I feel like in a way, there are resources that are being funneled for that, which is almost parallel to what a justice center would do. So I want to make sure that we're acknowledging that is the Family Justice Center one of those things where we're spending a lot of time looking at that, going, hey, we'd love to have it, but we're going to do this smaller project and it's going to make more sense to do that. So I also don't want to I want to make sure that it's not in any way, taking away from that.
It's not. We learned very on in the Family Justice Center process, some of the original meetings that we had actually in this room. There are steps that we need to take, particularly as a rural community, that it's taking more time. We've learned a lot as the lead organization in this process. There have been committees of agencies, and the sheriff has been involved as chair of our program that are continuing on as we develop. What we see is this is sort of like a step in that direction. Right now, this is really focused on expanding the current services that we have. There is a possibility, if there's enough space, that we might work with another agency to bring in and have some office space there. That's not determined yet. We'll do that through the application process. if there's another agency involved working with us or in that space. And of course, they have to meet all the criteria that the grant requires. This one view is this is simply an expansion of Juliet's House services, which is predominantly what it is. Another is that is a step in the direction of ultimately creating a family justice center. The space required for a true family justice center, this building does not begin to cover that, nor does the current existence of Juliet's House. We would be looking at other property to be acquired and many, many other participants in making this come to reality. Certainly getting the state involved, a number of foundations and major donors involved in trying to raise the monies, not just to build a family justice center, but to make sure that it has the funding to operate consistently. We know we can handle this, and we know that this fund directed just to purchase this space, and we can move in and begin very quickly providing services in that space. Any alterations of that space over time, we would do, as I mentioned, outside of this particular fund. We would raise the money on our own. So I guess what I'm saying is this project is in no way a competition to the ultimate family justice center we'd all like to have for our county.
Thank you.
Any more questions?
No, I think I would, just to throw in an opinion here, I think that, if we did have another once in a lifetime, once in a generation event, whether that's the earthquake or another pandemic or something, at every level, you have support and shown support of government, from federal to all the way down to cities and school boards and so on. So we saw with COVID that there was advocacy for you to be able to stay open and how you serviced. So I understand the liability, and if you were a different organization, I would maybe have a stronger opinion of what Commissioner Sterrett's saying of liability, and well, what if you close your doors or there's a mass fraud, or something of your funds. But I have complete faith in your guys' ability to service the community and of the elected officials to be able to do that. So that's where I stand, and I would motion to move forward with this, to propose staff to work in conjunction with Juliet's House to apply for the community development block grant.
I just have a clarification question. Strictly looking at the website here, the application deadline it says it's September 30th.
Correct.
Okay, why was I told August 31st?
August 30th, we have to do basically a notice of intent to apply. There's a first step, and then if you get the invitation to apply, then that deadline, September 30th.
I yield my time.
We have to publish the minutes of this meeting. Is that correct?
Shelby?
We'll be adopting those next week.
Okay, so they'll be adopted next week. They'll be published next week.
Yes, so whenever the public notice was read aloud, those meeting minutes need to be signed and approved. And then that documentation with the notice, the affidavit of posting or publication, and your signed and approved meeting minutes go along with your project intake form, which is due August 31st. And then at that time, the myself and the policy team here at Business Oregon review the intake, the request to apply, take about 2 to 3 business days as needed. Any follow-up questions we come back to the county with. And if no questions, then you're invited to apply and have full access to the application materials, with the final application and materials due September 30th.
Thank you. Yeah, for me, it really comes down to worthy project. I am concerned about this becoming the county's liability. That's all it comes down to. No aspersions cast on the work of Juliet's House, but ultimately, my job is is basically to take a look at what this means for the bottom line of the county. And that's kind of where I come down.
And honestly, I don't blame you. I've only been here over 3 years now, and we've seen it twice now. So it is a legit concern of the liability of it. And I want to make sure that we're all clear, just because we're having a very lengthy discussion over the last couple of weeks with it, is not to minimize at all what Juliet's House does for the community.
Understood.
I'm here for you in full support. Commissioner King made a motion. Is there any further discussion on that?
None.
None. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, nay.
Nay.
So Commissioner King, aye. Commissioner Johnston, aye. And Commissioner Starrett, nay. Motion passes. Thank you very much. Now we need to do prioritize the applications. And because we do need to look out for county business first, and I know I don't take this prioritization, at least for me, the recommendation I'm going to make, but I'm going to recommend that we prioritize Cove Orchard and then Juliet's House application. And that's a
Agreed.
motion. Is there any further discussion on that?
None.
None. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Good. Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Russell.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Arthur.
Thanks, Russell. Thanks, Russell.
Okay, that brings us to, just make sure. Announcements. Commissioner King.
Several calls this week with hospitality groups again, WAVA, other industry members. There's a call again as a veterans work group with AOC, discussion. We've had it a couple of times now, and really the options and over several options. And we're going to recommend, this little subgroup is going to recommend Judge Joe, the incoming president for AOC, to appoint a vet to the public safety, a veteran to the Public Safety and Veterans Committee as a co-chair. So, and then really just lean into our county staffs to help us with legislation that they see coming through, and AOC staff to also maybe prioritize just a little bit more what any sort of legislation that's coming through where the counties need to weigh in at. And with that, this week was pretty filled with some amazing people that I got to visit with, and just around the community. And I'll highlight the Willamina National Night Out was a great attendance. Jason and I were there, got to cover for Commissioner Johnston in the dunk tank. I got the better shift. I think Jason got the colder shift, but I don't know, Jason, how many people were there? A couple, 300 people come and go. Really just an amazing turnout. On Sunday night, yes, Yamhill Enrichment Society had their annual fundraiser. And this is a little bit different one. It has a really great meal, but there's not really an auction or anything. They're just really there to raise money. And the three of us have attended at the Lafayette School with Mayor Malcolmson, one of their programs. And so this is the fundraiser that kind of supports that. And that night they were able to, just through a wine wall and paddle race, is $118,000. So, really shout out to those groups, Susan Sokol-Blosser, Alyssa Johnson, and the rest of their board for the work that they do continuously, and the commitment to childhood education and reading programs and classical music. It's really, the three of us got to see it firsthand. It really is an amazing program. And Commissioner Johnson was there last night as well, and I got to help out a little bit with Spark Newburgh, a missing middle housing project started by the mayor of Newburgh, and they were able to raise last night. It really focused on workforce housing and the need for that, and really every community and what that looks like. But they were able to raise over $250,000 last night as well. And a big piece of that was the last minute call in of $100,000 bid paddle raise from one gentleman who is one of the owners of Highland Vineyards. So super cool that happened. And then the buy-in with the other stakeholders of the largest employers of Newburgh, DCI being a major part of it, Providence, George Fox, and of course the Austin Family Foundation, and then the parishes who Lonnie Parish is in Austin, putting up some of their own money as well, $500,000 for a match. So really, I think we live in an amazing county and very generous people to help out with some of these needs. So it's great to get to be a part of it. Thank you.
Chair Johnson and I were at the Homeward Bound Pet Shelter preview grand opening. They've done an amazing job. Having seen that shelter in years past, it's absolutely state of the art. And it's beautiful. And speaking of dog control, the sheriff is continuing to work, as is our administration and the board, continuing to work on solutions for making sure that we have a robust dog control program. So for those who think that nothing is being done, there's a lot being done behind the scenes. So I do want to bring that up. Want to bring up also that the Annual Association of County Clerks has officially presented our clerk, Carrie Hinton, with a certified county clerk certification, which requires many years of management and government experience and specialized education. So it is a bit of a milestone, so we appreciate that. The MAC Chamber breakfast was yesterday and at the event center at Evergreen. It's always great to visit with our business owners, and with the, as a chamber member, we are very grateful that they do the work that they do. The other thing, we received a notice from our water master, Joel Plon, talking about the upper reach of the Willamina Creek Basin. 9 of those water rights are being removed, regulated off. 5 of those are held by the city of Sheridan, but only 1 of them is being used, and the city gets most of their money from the South Yamhill. So the mayor and city manager have been apprised of that. Also, for folks who've been concerned about what's been going on at, where'd he go? Checking out the water right situation. For those who are concerned about what's going on at the transfer station in Newburgh, lots of folks showed up and were told that the transfer station was shut down. I've reached out to the regional manager. He's not here until the 24th, but it was reopening today. And that's causing a concern, because what we're looking at as far as the county goes is, when folks have their trucks loaded up, ready to go, and then they get there and there's nowhere to dump it, guess what they're going to do? They're going to dump it on the rural roads. And this is a concern. So we've got an ongoing problem, and we have to address it. And hopefully Waste Management will be able to address that. I was able to take part in a meeting of the Yamhill County Older Health and Wellness Group. And I can't say enough about Lacey Plasker, who heads that up. We have a really, really strong outreach to seniors. And we had a presentation from Virginia Garcia talking about their health and behavioral health interventions for older people. And there's just so much that's being done. She's going to come on the 10th of September and talk a little bit about that, because I've asked her to share what's being done. Folks don't realize what's being done through HHS with for older folks in our county. And also I signed up along with, I believe Bailey and Kale signed up. It's called PIP, which is an intergenerational pen pal program where you write to kids in school and then they write back and they learn letter writing skills and things like that. I told Bailey and Kale they're not old enough because this is supposed to be for old people like me, but they're going to do it anyway. And I think I will stop there.
Okay. Last Thursday was Lafayette's city council meeting. I think the biggest thing there was the dedication of the new flag box. And I think it'd blow you away of how many people, including myself, have flags that they need to dispose of, but don't know how to do it properly and don't want to. So they're gonna, I don't know that they are 100% sure where they're gonna mount it. They discuss maybe somewhere around the fire department, but they don't want to put it next to the existing clerk's box, so there's no confusion there. But they'll figure that out, and there will be one in Lafayette. I believe the other one's gonna go in Newburgh somewhere, so stay tuned for that one. But if you guys have any, I put 3 of my decommissioned flags in there for them to dispose of properly. So it was a good ceremony. Local VFW showed up, and it was a good dedication. As Commissioner Sterrett mentioned, there's a homeward bound ribbon cutting. I actually went the next morning too, where the chamber had a ribbon cutting for homeward bound pets. Got us a little tour of it. It is a very, very nice state-of-the-art facility. I was a little bit perturbed after because I get there first on Thursday night. We get a tour, and then by the time I'm leaving, we weren't allowed in the little catteries. And then when I'm leaving, I see people in the catteries. So I guess I'll have to go in there later. And maybe somebody said they were going to adopt something and they got to go in there. So, and then Quinn, she was going to, I think you were going to make sure Quinn left with a cat, or maybe it was Mayor Morris.
No, I was trying to get one for our county council who unfortunately just lost her sweet cat.
Oh,
And I did send her pictures of a couple of candidates and they are really, really sweet.
was there any good candidate? Did you go see him?
Oh, no, no.
You don't go
No.
see them because if you go see them, you take one home.
I can vouch for that.
I only take cats from Noelle. That's my MO.
Air show was this past weekend. It was phenomenal. And it was probably the most attended I've ever seen since it started. It was phenomenal. We're trying to, I learned from the chamber that they're trying to raise money to do a fireworks display, drone display, aerial plane, just nighttime show. And if they can do that, then once they get that seed money, then it can be perpetual for every other show.
Did
And it
they-
should be able
Did they
to.
mention what one of those costs by chance?
So just the fireworks show with the drones, I think they're trying to shoot for 70,000. I don't think that included the plane, but I bet you that guy, because I saw one flying in one of the nights, he had LEDs all over his plane. I bet he'd do it for free. So it's about
About 70
70
grand.
grand that they're shooting for. And then they believe it'll be sustainable. So once they get that one
Yeah.
seed money, then the tickets will start paying for it after that, because then people will know, be like, oh, there's a night show. And I can tell you the first year that they did the fireworks show, when the air show first came, I can't remember how many years ago it was, but it was phenomenal. It's not a bunch of in the air fireworks. It's all kind of like ground display with like fire and short,
Right on the runway.
yeah, it was awesome. So anyway, air show was fantastic. We got a fair board meeting tonight, 5:30. If you're interested, it'll be at the fairgrounds. Cruising McMinnville coming up this Saturday. Car show starts at noon on 3rd Street. Cruising starts at 5. If you're interested, come on down. It's sold out. I think it's sold out for every year so far now,
Yeah.
but it's very, very popular. There's a ton of cars on 3rd Street, so come check it out. With that, if there's nothing else for the good of the order, okay, I'm going to close it out at 12:09 p.m. Thank you, everyone.